Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever or whenever you happen to be listening to this. Thank you for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja based event and wedding photographer, Tavishima Ayede. First off, I'd like to apologize that I'm making yet another departure from the scheduled items that we were supposed to go through. I know I already made a departure yesterday while I was at the mechanics getting the car touched up, but it just occurred to me that there's something from one of our prior discussions that I didn't fill you guys in. So, for those of you who are regular listeners, you remember the time when I started off the whole series about whether you should talk to strangers and how you should talk to strangers. And that was inspired by two phone calls that I received at the time. One from a fellow who was looking for prospective customers who he could supply agricultural produce to. And that was because my brother and another partner who does most of the running around now. We run a business called Dove Agro Seeds, where, that's precisely what it is that we do. Although most of the trading expertise that we've built up has been around the export of charcoal. So, someone called in because was looking for people he could supply to, called in from Delta State, I think. Yeah, I think it was from Delta State. Well, I can't remember. Anyway, and then another call that I received from a fellow who worked with Sterling Bank. Yeah, Sterling Bank, who called concerning the Islamic banking or interest-free banking. I can't remember the other euphemisms that he used when he called. So, those calls that I received roughly around the same period, maybe 2 days apart, but really each distinct in character and approach and professionalism. So it got me thinking that perhaps I should share some of my thoughts about how best to go about trying to drum up business when we talk to prospective customers who are total strangers. Because for those of us in the wedding and the event space, it's not trying to drum up business this way is not something that is unknown to us. We just perhaps go about it slightly different ways because we're approaching people at bridal shows or people who approach our table. But the bottom line is, like most other people who are self-employed or who are business owners in Nigeria, it's something that we do from time to time, calling up strangers. Anyway, so this is not to rehash what my opinions are about how to go about doing that, talking to strangers, but I just want to let you guys know the outcome of one of those conversations. So I was really impressed with the approach of the banker, the fellow who called from Sterling Bank, and I didn't set up a meeting. I just went into the branch unannounced to make my inquiries there. And after the meeting, it occurred to me that I've been preaching a whole lot of stuff on the podcast without having practiced it myself, because I made one very I was going to say fatal flaw, but using the word fatal would be excessive. Anyway, so I went into the bank branch, that's the Sterling Bank at Area 8, and spoke to someone at their marketing department. And indeed, it turned out that this was not a scam. It's a legitimate program that they're running. It's not a spin-off. So if you are interested in this sort of thing, then it's a legit thing. So you can head over to Sterling Bank to make inquiries about that. But it turned out, however, that the interest-free financing that we're offering is actually tied into sales contracts and is more appropriate for leasing and hire purchase type agreements. And of course, if you remember from what I said in those episodes, what I was looking out for actually was to find an easy liquid way for getting funds. That's to run my advertising, that's Instagram advertising, and then also to try out Google advertising as well. So anyway, that whole setup didn't take too much time, maybe 20-30 minutes to drive to the bank, a few minutes to have the conversation, and then another 20-30 minutes back. So it would not be unreasonable to say that the whole endeavor maybe cost me about an hour 30 minutes of my day, which in itself is not a total waste. It's just that there are other things I could have been doing with that time. And this is where I ran foul of the principles that I espouse on this podcast. Now, when the banker, called, and I thought indeed it was something interesting that was worth looking into, I should have further qualified the situation. So I should have asked more questions. That, okay, this sounds really nifty, but if I do come in to have this meeting, these are the purposes for which I would want to use the funds. Are these sorts of things covered by the instrument that you're trying to describe to me? And at that point, he would have said, "Oh, no, no, no. Actually, this and this and this is what we have in mind," and would have wrapped it up there. Okay, thank you very much, and I would have known that there was no need for me to go into the bank. So I should have qualified the opportunity first. So I hope from this experience that I have had, you guys can see that when we talk about, when guys like me harp on about qualifying, we're not just yanning or bats. It's serious business. So when you have potential customers, you qualify to be sure that there's a meeting of minds when it comes to needs, and you guys are on point when it comes to money and all that. And the converse is also the same. Sometimes you're the one reaching out because you're trying to access something that might be a benefit here for you. And in my own case, it was interest-free financing, and I should have qualified the opportunity. So I should have asked more questions. If I did, I would have gotten all the information I needed from the phone, and there would have been no need for me to spend an hour 30 minutes on the adventure to get all the answers that I needed. So that was basically what this episode is about. Just to let you guys know how that whole adventure ended. The product does exist. It's legit. It's Sterling Bank, but unfortunately, it's not for. It doesn't tie in with what I wanted to do with it. Well, for the rest of you listening to the podcast, who, let's say you're a wedding photographer, you want to acquire some new equipment, then this thing is straight up it's right up your alley. So the way it works, I can't remember the name of the product. So the way it works, one of the possible scenarios would be you're a wedding photographer, you want to buy the latest Nikon D whatever. Maybe it costs 1.5, but you've only got maybe 250k or something. So go ahead, you approach them. Of course, they'll want you to open an account with them. You're required to have a certain level of a certain deposit to match the value of what it is that you want to buy. The bank goes ahead to purchase the asset, and so the bank will own the asset, but the bank will hand it over to you, and you keep servicing the payments. So that'll be an easy way for you to get that Nikon, 7 whatever, the latest and greatest camera that you've had your eye on since last year. This will be an easy way for you to purchase it and to use it, and while you're using it as if it was yours, even though technically and legally speaking it will be owned by the bank, you will have access to the asset, and you will finance the cost of the camera that way. So for those of you who are looking to purchase some new fancy and exciting stuff that you want to use to promote your business, it's something that you ought to look into. So for wedding planners, maybe not planners, I think more like decorators, because wedding decorators own a lot of inventory. They have to buy tablecloth, different kind of vases, artificial flowers, what else? Trucks to move around equipment, and blah de blah. So this might be something that you guys can use to solve the financing problems in your business. So like I said, it's more for sales contracts, hire purchase and leasing agreements. So if you're a decorator and you want to lease a truck, this is something you ought to look into. You want to purchase your truck outright, it's something you should look into. If you're a DJ and I think maybe you need a new set of wheels to promote your business, it's something you might look into. But of course, I'm not offering you guys any legal or financial advice, so you have to go and do your own research. And with Sterling Bank, and I was assured that You can walk into any branch of Sterling Bank in Abuja, and people in the marketing department will be willing to answer all your questions. So it wasn't a fit for me, but it might be something that might be a fit for you. But just remember, come up with some qualifying questions ahead of time, so that if you're speaking to someone on the phone, you guys can have a fruitful conversation, and you know whether you're at that fork in the road and you either have to take a decision, go left, go right, or if you go into the branch like I did, just to be sure that you have a fruitful conversation while you're there, you can cut straight to the chase and get on with just get on with the day-to-day of moving your business forward. So that sums it up, what I've decided to use this episode for. So now you guys know how the whole thing ended, and you also have another example of why qualification is important, because sometimes people are trying to get stuff from you. You qualify to be sure that there's a meeting of minds, but then again, when you are reaching out because you want to get stuff from other people, you now have to qualify, because it's going to save you time and effort, and it's going to make your focus super concentrated, so that you can cut straight to the heart of the matter. And for those of you who are considering purchases this year as a way of growing your business, your wedding practice in 2021, I think it's something that you should look into. Don't worry about the fact that it's popularly called Islamic banking. Don't worry about that. It's called Islamic because, well, of course, it's the Islamic tenets that I refer to. They are not necessarily religious per se, but more ethical, that are derived from the religion. And so because of that, they're not going to finance certain things. So let's say you want to use it because you want to open up a strip joint, for instance. They're not going to finance that. That's where the Islamic comes in. And then there's also a limit to how much interest they can charge. So those are the religious and ethical issues over there. So don't approach them because you want to open up a strip joint. So that's it. So bottom line, if you're a Christian, you won't have to become a Muslim to access this kind of financing. So that's it. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based event and wedding photographer. And tomorrow we will return to the regular schedule for our programming, unless something else more interesting and more exciting happens, and then I'll be making another detour. But as for now, all is good. Tomorrow we'll pick up from where we left off before I made the last two detours. So, catch you guys on the next episode.